Good morning, HU. How you doing? All right. It's beautiful outside. It's going to be an awesome day. And it is homecoming weekend, so that's also very, very exciting. Lots of things coming up. I understand that the women's and men's basketball team tonight are going to be doing some demo and demonstrations and exhibitions, so you don't want to miss that. Over in the gym, also the homecoming coronation is going to be happening. So that all kicks off at 5. So I want to make sure you're there. Want to say hello to our guests. We've got a visitation day. Can we say hello to, welcome. We're so glad y'all are here. My name is Mark Vincenti. I'm the campus pastor, and it's going to be an awesome, awesome chapel today, so we're really excited about that. I've got a couple of really important announcements. The first thing is on the slide. We've got our spiritual formation survey. You can win gift cards, AirPods, and other stuff like that. You're going to be receiving an email on Monday from this organization. It takes 20 to 30 minutes to do, but if you fill it out, you'll be entered for a drawing. There's going to be another survey later about something different. This helps us to get your opinion and your thoughts on how we can most help you in your spiritual journey here at Huntington University. So it's really important to us. You'll be entered into a drawing. If you do both surveys, you'll be entered into a drawing for each survey and a grand prize drawing for something like a TV or other things like that. So you want to get in on that. Second thing we wanted to let you know, at the end of chapel today, we are going to be letting our guests go and get food at the DC. I want you all to know, because it's First Friday, there are free hot dogs, chili dogs, chips, and root beer over at the hub. So you can save a swipe, go over there, and get that. So make sure at the end of today you head that way and you take advantage of that. It's going to be great. And then the third thing we want you to know about a special chapel tomorrow at 11. There's going to be praise and worship. One of my former ministry professors, awesome guy Dave Ron, is going to be preaching and speaking. He's going to be incredible. So that's tomorrow at 11, and again, that's an opportunity for a spiritual life credit. So we're going to worship together, so I'm going to pass things off to Braden.
Happy Friday. Yeah, like Mark said, super excited that we have all the visitors here. It feels fuller than it usually does, so that's super fun. Would you guys stand and pray with me to transition in this time of worship? Father God, thank you so much for the opportunity to come together and worship you this morning. I pray that you would help us center our hearts towards you, that we would have a chance to bask in the awesomeness of community worship, that we would spend the next few minutes singing praises to you because you are more than worthy. You deserve all of our praise. I pray over all the students in this room that we would be able to focus and set aside any distractions that may be flooding our thoughts and our minds. But I pray over this team that I thank you for the opportunity that we have to lead our peers in worship. And yeah, I pray that this time of worship would be glorifying to you and put a smile on your face. In your name, amen. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory.
for your goodness. I thank you that we are able to call you Father. We are able to call you friend. And we know that that is only because, Jesus, you went to the cross for us. You laid down your life so that when we by faith place our trust in what you've already done for us, we have life, everlasting, abundant life in the here and now. We thank you that you never leave us or forsake us. Thank you for this time of worship. Pray that you will be with our speaker this morning and that you'll just use him. In your precious name we pray. Amen. You can be seated.
Love it. We're so excited you guys are here, and we want to welcome our digital media arts perspective students sitting somewhere in this area over here. So snaps for them, right, guys? Come on, they're here testing it out. Hey, you guys, I'm so excited. Today is my distinct privilege to introduce a truly remarkable author, speaker, and more importantly, friend, Christopher DeVink. Chris's life journey is a testament to the enduring power of his faith, love, compassion, and the pursuit of knowledge. Next spring, Chris and his wife, Ro, will celebrate their 48th wedding anniversary. How about snaps for that? They are a testament to their enduring commitment to each other and their family. They're proud parents of 3 grown children, 2 beloved grandchildren. Christopher's academic accomplishments are truly impressive. With an MA and doctorate degree from Columbia University, he's dedicated 4 decades to a distinguished career in education, impacting lives on both K through 12 and university students. However, what really sets Christopher apart is his prolific writing career. He has authored 17 books, published by such publishers as Doubleday, HarperCollins, Viking, Macmillan, and many others. Notably, his novel Ashes is a poignant story inspired by his mother's harrowing escape with his severely disabled brother Oliver from the Nazi invasion of Belgium in 1940. Most recently, Paraclete Press has published Christopher's enchanting novel, Mr. Nicholas, A Magical Christmas Tale, which, by the way, Forrester Film, our film production company at Huntington University, has optioned to turn into a feature film, Lord willing, in 2025. We're excited about that. Christopher's literary accomplishments have not gone unnoticed. He's won many Christopher Awards and been honored many ways for his writing. He actually got to meet Pope John Paul II after he was introduced to him, also President Reagan. Christopher's essays, which include over 200 essays, have graced the pages of publications such as the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and even this other magazine called the Reader's Digest. Does anybody know what that is? Raise your hand if you know. Yeah, I'm proud of you guys for that. Way to go. His writings have earned praise from literary luminaries like John Updike, Madeline L. Ingle, Mary Oliver, Wendell Berry, Peggy Noonan, Henry Nouwen, and his beloved friend Fred Rogers. Christopher DeVink's life and work embody the enduring values of love, compassion, and the power of the written word. We are honored to have him here today, and I have no doubt that his insights and wisdom on telling great stories will leave an indelible mark on all of us. Please join me in welcoming Christopher DeVink.
Thanks, Lance. Thank you, Lance. You know, my wife stopped coming to these because, she listened to an introduction like that and she would say, "Big deal. Did you put the garbage out?" She keeps me humble. I do want to start, the power of story, but I do want to start with 2 things. Certainly thanking Dr. Emberton for the gracious welcoming and hospitality that you offered me. It's wonderful. And thanks to Dr. Lance also for Dr. Clark for the invitation to come here. It's been a real privilege. But I have something to say I didn't know, but this was the weekend when some people are coming to see, do you want to come to Huntington? Is this a place you want to be? And I think this whole day is a ploy. I'll tell you, listen to this. I met some of the professors here, some of the classes today, just yesterday. It's just wonderful. The Matt Webb is one of the professors here, one of the directors, and in the theater and TV production, and your minister here is Mark. And then I had lunch yesterday with your academic dean of academics, and it was Luke and Matthew, Mark, Luke. If I meet John, I'm going to be very, very suspicious about this place. Very, very suspicious. Now let me start. My grandmother, she could only speak French and Flemish. And every 2 summers, she would come to visit us from Belgium when we were children. And what I always remember, in the evening, my grandmother, she had kind of rough hands, and she had her thumb and her hands and her fingers. And every evening before we went to bed, viens ici, Christophe, come here, Christophe, viens ici, Christophe. And she'd come and she'd take her thumb and she'd cross a kreske and a slapwell in Flemish. A kreske and a slapwell. And if you can feel, lots of our English language come from the Germanic. A kreske sounds like a cross. And a slapwell means sleep well. A cross and a sleep well. Every night, a cross and a sleep well for my grandma. Now you have here, and Lance, Dr. Clark asked me to speak about the power of story, to do a film, to do a movie, to write a book. In the very end, it's the story. Where do we have our best archives of nonfiction? In our history books. History is full of these extraordinary stories. If I weren't a high school English teacher, I would have been a high school history teacher. History. Where is the best place you can find the idea of fiction? That, of course, in novels and plays and poetry. But the power of story. What does story do? I have 2 grandchildren. Indigo is 19 months. Finian is 4 years old. To pass along the stories of our history, the stories of our families, to pass along, you are passing along through traditions of what it means to be who we are as human beings. And Mr. Rogers, and maybe many of you don't know Mr. Rogers, but you do know Christ. And when they asked Jesus, for heaven's sakes, what do you want from us? And he said simply, it's so simple. I just want you to love each other. Just love one another. And where do you find the very best examples of that heritage being passed along to each other? It's through the telling of stories. The reason I love telling stories, though, the reason I write poetry, the reason I like the idea of metaphor. If I simply said to Ro, my wife, if I simply said to her, Ro, I love you, yeah, okay, I love you. Or Ro and I are watching television. Her legs are crossed. I'm caressing her legs a little bit, watching TV, and Ro will say, Chris, I have a hankering for little potato chips. And the story is, want me to go on a junk run? I'll go on a junk run for you. And, oh no, Chris, it's 8:30 at night. You don't want to go to the store. And I'll get the potato chips. I go 2-3 miles. I get her a bag of potato chips. I come home. I give her the potato chips. I much rather share a story about love by telling you a story. Don't tell, show. They'll say that in writing. Don't tell, but show. My grandson, Finian, just keeping track here. My grandson, Finian, he was going to the doctor for a checkup. He came home, and as grandparents or parents, we always want to teach kids things. So I asked Finian, little 4-year-old Finian, Finn, what are some of the doctor tools? Oh, Grandpa, what are some of the doctor tools? Oh, Grandpa, there's a thermometer, and there's a stethoscope, and the lollipop. I'm sure if you go to med school, you're going to learn about all the important equipment, the stethoscopes, the heart monitor, and the lollipop. Finian actually, he gets a lollipop every time at the end. So you get a lollipop. The power of telling stories. The power of telling stories. I better put my glasses on. Forgive me here. There. Here it is. Okay, I told you that. Okay, now, this is what I want to share with you too. Where do we find some of the greatest stories to transfer that heritage of love, that heritage of passion? These stories that were told a little over 2,000 years ago. When you think about some stories and these stories are told again and again and again, here in Huntington, here in your churches, here in your hearts, the parables, the Good Samaritan. When you think about that story, when Jesus was talking about, oh, I want you to turn your other cheek and love one of each other, the things that he was saying were so outside the thinking of anybody. And the stories about Christ, the stories about his world, it's gone from generation to generation to generation. When I was your age, I was so lonely. I was so lonely. And what do you do when you have a lonely heart? You know, the dorm in Columbia University, and the drinking, the drugs, the sex. I was so lonely. I was so lonely. What did I do? I sat in my little dorm, and I started writing poetry. So that's how I started becoming a writer. I started writing poetry. My poor little empty heart. That summer, I went with my mom and dad. We have a little cabin in Ontario on the nice little lake. My mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, and we're sitting on the sand and the beach. And I said to my family, I'm going to go for a walk. And my sister, I'll come with you. No, I'll go by myself. So I walked past the cabin, along the road, past the field of the horses on the left and the field on the right. And I came to the local church. And behind this local church, they had a shrine up on the hill, a little tiny chapel up on the hill for the Canadian martyrs. It was a Jesuit community who were slaughtered many years before. And so it's a little shrine to the Jesuit martyrs, and a beautiful little shrine. So I climbed the hill. I climbed up the hill. I sat in this little tiny chapel, 4 maybe pews, and I sat there. And I said out loud in this little chapel, I'm lonely. And I said, God, I'll make a deal with you. I don't make deals with God. I'm going to make a deal with you. I took out my ID card from Columbia University, and I put it on the top door sill of the little chapel, and I put it on top of the door sill, and I turned around and I said, now, here's the deal. I'm going to leave my ID card here for a year. And in that year, you are going to introduce me to a girl that I can fall in love with. And when I come back, I'll retrieve my ID card, and then we'll both be happy. So I went down the hill, past the horses, back on the road, back to the cabin, back to the beach, brother, sister, mother, father, all there, had a good day. We go back to New Jersey. September, October, January, March, June, July, we're back at the beach. Summer had gone, the year had passed. My mother on the beach, father on the beach, sisters, brothers sitting. I'm going to go for a walk. Can I go with you? Ann said, no, I'll go by myself. Down the road, past the horses, back to the church, up to the chapel. I open the door. You ever see those old Western movies? You break through the saloon and the guy walks through. I felt like breaking through the saloon. I enter the little chapel. I sit down and I said out loud, I thought we had a deal. So I said, okay, I'll give you another chance. I went back to the door. I went to the top of the door sill, and there's my ID card, Columbia University. I took it off. I cleaned it off. Look, I'll clean it off for you. I wiped off the dust. I put it back up on the door sill, and I said, okay, 1 year from now, I hope that you understand what I'm looking for. Down the hill I went, past the horses, back to the cabin, brothers and sisters. August, we're back in New Jersey. September, I'm teaching my first class of high school teaching in a rural high school in Sussex, New Jersey, High Point Regional High School. And I'm in my English class. It's the 3rd, 4th, 5th week, and I'm taking attendance. Bobby, here. Mary, here. George, you did a great job at the football game today. Yes, Mr. DeVink, here. Jeannie, oh, she's absent, Dr. DeVink. Mr. DeVink, she's absent. By 4th period, we heard that Jeannie had been killed in a car accident on the way to school. She got to this intersection, and Sussex County, New Jersey, is a very hilly, beautiful, beautiful spot, and the fog rolls in and stays in the valley for quite a while. Jeannie got to the intersection. She looked to the left, looked to the right. Her brother was in the car seat to the right. Her neighbor was in the back seat. She pulled out an intersection, and a car broadsided her on the side, another student driver, and Jeannie died on the way to the hospital. The parents, they didn't want a wake. They wanted the people to come to their home and grieve with them. So they opened up their home, and I went because Jeannie, my student, so many people from the church, they were so involved in their church, so many people from the church, of course, so many kids from the high school. It was a beautiful, it's all like a movie scene, these people walking up to sorrow, but the parents didn't want it to be walking to sorrow. They said we wanted to walk to faith, walk to God, walk to our daughter, walk to the hope for all of us. When you enter the front door, they had Jeannie's graduation picture in her robe. Remember, you took the pictures of your robe and your cap right on the piano. I went inside the kitchen and sat at the round table with some of my students, and there was a commotion at the front door. And I turned, and Jeannie's sister, Linda, was going to Glassboro State College, and she's coming up from college. Of course, her sister had just died. She's coming up to grieve, and she enters into the kitchen, and she sits down. Linda sits down. Another college roommate sits down, and this girl also, another college roommate, she sits right next to me. And Pam, one of the college girls, she just got engaged. And she's showing the ring and talking about Jeannie and how sad and the ring. And this girl sitting next to me, I said to her, is that an engagement ring too? And the girl went, no, not engagement ring, not engagement ring. Later on, when you go to a wake, people bring food, or a family gathering at Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving meal, or the food in the living room or the dining room. The dining room had it's huge amount of food people brought, and I saw this girl going into this little room where all the food was. So I'm going to make my move. I'm going to be the suave, debonair guy. The first time I told my high school students about this story, a boy called out, "Mr. DeVink, you picked up a girl at a funeral?" Well, you gotta take advantage, whatever. So I go into the dining room. The food is there. This girl is on the other side of the table, and now I'm going to think of something really sophisticated to say. So I don't know, what are you doing next week? I don't know what you say, so she's there poking away with the food, and I go. Her name is Rosemary, and we call her Ro. And so I said, Ro. And just as I was about to be, the Sean Connery or this really suave 007, this sweet old aunt comes into the room, and it's so sad for Jeannie. It's so sad, and you can't pick up a girl and old ladies in the room. And I walked out. Later on, I'll never forget this. Later on, the kitchen had a white refrigerator. And Ro was leaning back against the refrigerator. Her legs were crossed like this. She had a blue skirt kind of by her knees. And I thought, boy, she has great legs. Great legs. One of the reasons my wife is not here today, because Lance wanted me to make a presentation, the invitation of the college university president. I gave that story when Ro was sitting in the audience. At the end of the speech, I can't tell you how many people walked up to my wife. Nice legs. Nice legs. Nice legs. It was a very, very long trip home that night. Very long trip home. I'll tell you something about writing a little bit also. When Ro and I first got married, I would show her an essay I'm working on. Ro, look at this essay. Look at this essay. What do you think? Oh, it's nice. What do you mean it's nice? I'm the next Shakespeare. I was so insulted. And we had this little blow-up, whatever. I said, Chris, this isn't fair. What's not fair? I can't honestly tell you how I feel about your writing if you're going to act this way every time. I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'm good at making deals, by the way, with God and my wife. If you make your deal with your mate and your wife, you're in good shape. I said to Ro, let's do it this way. I will only ask you to read things of mine that have been published. Because that way, she said, yeah, it's a great idea, Chris, because that way, if you don't like it, well, somebody else did. So she can obviously say, that's why I became a writer, so my wife and I could communicate, and she could read the stuff So I did ask Ro out. I called her that night, and I said, I'd like to maybe get together. And she, yes, that would be nice. When would you like to get, how about tomorrow? And Ro, we were engaged in 6 months, and Ro said to me, Chris, when I first met you, I thought you're kind of weird. I said, why? Well, you walked in the room, you said my name, then you walked out. You walked out. And it's 6 months later, we're engaged. That summer, my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister, Ro, we're on the beach in Canada, and I want to go for a walk. Ro says, I'll come with you. No, I want to go by myself. Get out of the cabin, down the road, past the horses. Those horses are still there. How long do horses live? I just don't know. Maybe they knew horses. I walked by the horses, came to the church, went up the hill, into the chapel. I just want to cry when I say this story. And I've shared with the story again and again and again. And I was so grateful. I was so grateful. You know, when I met Ro, I dated quite a few girls. And when you date somebody, you're with somebody, you just kind of know it's not going to go where you want it to go, where it's going to go. And I called my mother. And I saw this girl picking her food in the dining room table. And the next evening, I'm telling my mom, I'm calling my mother. Mom, I met this girl. What do I do? Oh, Chris, just pray about it, Christopher. Just pray about it. So I went in this little chapel, and I said out loud, thank you, God, for Ro. Jeannie, who died, her birthday was March 31st. Our son Michael's birthday is March 31st. When John DeBlock, Jeannie's father, lived many, many years afterwards, we were good friends because Linda and Ro, they 6 girls from college, they still stay together. The friendships you've made here in this university are some of your friends for life. It's such a wonderful, wonderful thing that the school has given you. And Linda's father, John, was died about 5 years ago. We went to his house. They had hospice at home. And I was able to be with John for a moment, Jeannie's father. And I said to John, thank you for my children. Thank you for Ro. They knew out of the great sorrow that they endured, one wonderful thing happened. Ro and I met. We have children. We have the 2 grandchildren. You know, don't be afraid of sorrow. Don't be afraid of sadness. Turn it into something marvelous. I was sitting with my mother. She was 99 years old. It was the end of the summer, early fall. We're sitting on the terrace, and we're feeding the chipmunks. And the blue jays like peanuts. Did you know blue jays like peanuts? It's the most bizarre thing. They're eating all these peanuts. My mom and I are sitting on the terrace feeding the chipmunks and the blue jays. And out of nowhere, Mom turned to me, you know, Christopher, I'm going to die. I said, no, you're not. I'm 99 years old. I'm going to die, Christopher. I said, no, you're not. I didn't want to talk about it. No, you're not. She said, you have to promise me something. What's that? When I die, I do not want you to cry. I want you to celebrate. And she said this to me as though she has an atlas, as though she has the map, as though she has GPS. She said, I'm going to go on a great adventure. I'm going to go on a great journey. And she said it with such joy, with such joy. Now, I'm going to ask, and I'm sorry I'm doing it this way. It's a little awkward, but I'm going to ask your colleagues here to pass out the article. Are they here? Is somebody around here? Oh, do you have enough to do it? I don't know if it's going to take a little bit of time. While they're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about this piece. My department chair, he lived an hour and a half away from the school. He would drive to the high school. Halfway, he'd stop at a diner, and he'd read the Wall Street Journal. Then on his way home, he'd stop at the diner and read the New York Times. So he would come to school and clip out articles from the Wall Street Journal that we thought we English teachers would appreciate. So he placed in our mailbox an article by one of the editors from the bureau of the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Bureau. I don't remember the story, but I do remember the tagline. It said, this was written by the so-and-so of the Washington Bureau, the goblin from the Washington Bureau, the Wall Street Journal. I said, the editor is calling him a goblin. It's Halloween time. And I got I did not know that the Wall Street Journal published little personal essays. So I wrote a little essay, and they published it. I said, well, I'll do another one. I wrote another essay. The Reader's Digest invited me to their office. They liked my article. Chris, could you write an article for us? And, well, I'd like to write an article about Mr. Rogers. Nah, we had an article, Mr. Rogers. How about an article about my brother Oliver? Well, what about Oliver? Well, he was blind and couldn't walk. He was in bed. He had polio. He very crippled, and we fed him and bathed him. We'd like you to write that article. So I went home to Roe, said, the Reader's Digest, they want me to write an article. So I typed the article. 2 weeks later, I sent it to the Reader's Digest. 2 weeks later, I got a 2-page rejection from the Reader's Digest. Chris, if you change this, if you change that, if you do this, if you do that, we might consider it again. I was so insulted, I wrote them a 2-page letter saying, well, I'm not changing this word, this sentence, this paragraph, no way am I changing this thing. And I gave the letter to Roe. Look at this letter, Roe. Here, Roe. And Roe looked at me and said, Chris, you don't want to burn your bridges. That's not, okay. So I sent a letter to the Reader's Digest after they rejected the article that's in your hand, and I said to them, thank you for your letter. I will see what I can do. And what I did, I mailed it to the Wall Street Journal. They published this piece, the piece that you have in your hand. President Reagan read this piece in the White House, and he wrote me a personal letter, and I'll share the quote with you later on. The way they gave President Reagan a newspaper, they take articles from all different newspapers, and they'd make a little newspaper for him. This little article sent me to my publisher, my first book published. It's because of this little piece. They asked me to read this in the Vatican. There was an international conference on the disabled. So I read my little article, this little article in the Vatican. Then they whisked me upstairs to meet Pope John Paul II. When I was whisked upstairs to meet the Pope, there's 2 people ahead of me. And the one person first ahead of me, the Pope was standing there, and the man bowed down and kissed the Pope's ring. And I'm sitting on the line, standing in line saying, I ain't doing that. I'm an American. We got rid of popes and bowing to popes and kings, and I'm not going to kiss his ring. Next, this old woman, she came and, Padre, kissed his ring and blessed him. I ain't doing that. I'm an American citizen. We're not doing that. It was my turn. I kissed his ring. I bowed down. But what was so wonderful to go home. They took a picture of me and the Pope. I'm always embarrassed about all this. All you could be here and talking. When Lance was introducing me, I don't want to shrink farther behind the chair because we are who we are, not because of who we are. We are who we are from all the so many people, and you're part of it too now. This school is part of it too now. My mother was so pleased to know that Oliver impressed people enough to be in the Vatican. Oliver impressed the President of the United States. And I need a copy of the article too, because I don't have one for me if I can steal your copy. Thank you. That's all I need. The Power of the Powerless, a brother's lesson. I grew up in the house. My brother was on his back, in his bed, for almost 33 years, in the same corner of his room, under the same window, beside the same yellow walls. Oliver was blind, mute. His legs were twisted. He didn't have the strength to lift his head, nor the intelligence to learn anything. Today, I'm an English teacher, and each time I introduce my class to the play about Helen Keller, the miracle worker, I tell my students about Oliver. One day, during my first year teaching, a boy in the last row raised his hand and said, "Oh, Mr. DeVink, you mean he was a vegetable?" I stammered for a few seconds. My family and I fed Oliver. We changed his diapers, hung his clothes and bed linen on the basement line in winter, and spread them out white and clean on the lawn in the summer. I always liked to watch the grasshoppers jump on the pillowcases. We bathed Oliver, tickled his chest to make him laugh. Sometimes we left the radio on in the room. We pulled the shade down over his bed in the morning to keep the sun from burning his tender skin. We listened to him laugh we listened to him laugh as we watched television downstairs. We listened to him rock his arms up and down to make the bed squeak. We listened to him cough in the middle of the night. Well, I guess you could call him a vegetable. I called him Oliver, my brother. You would have liked him. One October day in 1946, my mother was pregnant with Oliver, her second son. She was overcome by fumes from a leaking, coal-burning stove. My oldest brother was sleeping in his crib, which was quite off the ground, so the gas didn't affect him. My father pulled him outside, and my mother revived quickly. On April 20th, 1947, Oliver was born, a healthy-looking, plump, beautiful boy. One afternoon, a few months later, my mother brought Oliver to a window. She held him there in the sun, the bright, good sun, and there Oliver looked and looked directly into the sunlight, which was the first moment my mother realized that Oliver was blind. My parents, the true heroes of this story, learned in the passing months that blindness was only part of the problem. So they brought Oliver to Mount Sinai Hospital in New York for tests to determine the extent of his condition. The doctor said that he wanted to make it very clear to both my mother and father there's absolutely nothing that could be done for Oliver. He didn't want my parents to grasp at false hope. You could place him in an institution, he said. But my parents replied, he's our son. We'll take him home, of course. The good doctor answered, then take him home and love him. Oliver grew to the size of a 10-year-old. He had a big chest, a large head. His hands and feet were those of a 5-year-old, small and soft. We'd wrap a box of baby cereal for him at Christmas and place it under the tree, pat his head with a damp cloth in the middle of a July heat wave. His baptismal certificate hung on the wall above his head. A bishop came to the house and confirmed him. Even now, yikes, 42 years after his death from pneumonia on March 12, 1980, Oliver still remains the weakest, most helpless human being I ever met. And he was one of the most powerful human beings ever met. He could do absolutely nothing except breathe, sleep, eat, and yet he was responsible for action, love, courage, and insight. When I was small, my mother would say, isn't it wonderful that you can see? And once she said, when you go to heaven, Oliver will run to you and embrace you, and the first thing it will say is thank you. I remember, too, my mother explaining to me that we were blessed with Oliver in ways that were not clear to her at first. So often, parents are faced with a child who's severely disabled, who's also hyperactive, demanding, or wild, who needs constant care. So many people have little choice but to place their child in an institution. We were fortunate that Oliver didn't need us to be in his room all day. He never knew what his condition was. We were blessed with his presence, a true presence of peace. When I was in my early 20s, I met a girl and fell in love. A few months later, I brought her home to meet my family. When my mother went to the kitchen to prepare dinner, I asked the girl, would you like to see Oliver? For I told her about my brother. No, she answered, no. Soon after, I met Ro, a lovely girl. She asked me the names of my brothers and sisters. She loved children. I thought she was wonderful. I brought her home after a few months to meet my family. Soon it was time for me to feed Oliver. I remember sheepishly asking Ro if she'd like to see him. Sure, she said. I sat at Oliver's bedside as Ro watched over my shoulder. I gave him his first spoonful, his second. Well, can I do that? Ro asked with ease, with freedom, with compassion. So I gave her the bowl, and she fed Oliver one spoonful at a time. The power of the powerless. Which girl would you marry? Today, Ro and I have 3 children. And you know something? We do things, and we really don't know what we're doing. The Wall Street Journal had no idea what they were doing. Do you see? When you go to heaven, Chris, heaven in the Wall Street Journal. Heaven in the Wall Street Journal. The power of story. President Reagan wrote me this personal letter, and he said, we sometimes fall into the habit of thinking the weakest amongst us, like your brother Oliver, are burdens we must stoically bear. But you show that they can teach us the deepest lessons of love. The word love coming from the voice of the President of the United States. The word love coming from the Huntington University. The word love coming from my brother who couldn't speak, couldn't talk. What you do for the least of my brothers, you do for me. The metaphor of telling the story. Instead of saying, I love you, go get a friend of yours a bag of potato chips. And I'll suggest this also, the power of story. The power of story is a tool. So I want you to use that tool. Tell your stories, tell your children, tell your grandchildren the stories. I want you to also give them a lollipop. And each evening, I want you to take your thumb, maybe go to your mother and father, go to your uncles and aunts, go to your brothers and sisters, go to your own children someday. Take your thumb and make the little cross on their forehead, and a kreska and a slapwell. And I wish all of you, that each night you have that little cross, a kreska and a slapwell. And I hope when you think about coming to Huntington University, when I think about what I saw, I have a theory. This is a ploy. I wasn't invited here to talk. They want me to sign up and be a student here. That's what they want. And I have a great college ID that has wonderful power, so maybe I should come here. God bless you all, and thank you for this opportunity.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And let's all go out and tell some great stories today. Right now, we're going to let our prospective students get up and family and head toward the dining commons, because the rest of you are going to get to eat some hot dogs, right? So give them the head starts. The QR code is going to come up for you in a second for you guys to get your chapel credit. And then enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening. If you want to say hi to Chris, he'll hang down here for a few minutes. Thank you very much.